Poor alien woman tried to leave quietly, but single father saw her staring at his daughter's plate. The upper dining tier of Halorn Spire was busy but controlled, the way the city liked everything. Lines of warm ceiling panels washed the walkway in steady amber light, flattening shadows, turning the metal floor into a clean, even path. No glass, no show of height. The storm ocean roared far below the structure, but up here the sound was a low, steady rumble that most people tuned out. Seth walked with Myra's small hand in his. His work band was still on his wrist, the skin under it slightly paler than the rest of his forearm from hours in inspection gloves. He had clocked out an hour ago, filed the last safety report on a hairline crack in an anchor plate, and told himself he would not think about structural tolerances again until morning. He felt tired. His shoulders carried the heavy pull of the day, an ache behind his neck where the harness had dug in. He rolled his shoulders once as they reached the entrance of Neri's hearth grill, then forced the tension down. Mira looked up at him, expecting something simple. Food timed his attention. "Remember," he said, pressing the door pad, "we're celebrating you finishing that math assignment, not me surviving another day on the pylons." She grinned. "We can celebrate both." The door shifted aside with a soft seal noise. Warm air rolled over them, smelling of grilled fish, spice, and hot broth. The change hit Seth's nose sharply after the cooler corridor. Salt, cooked fat, a hint of sweet sauce, bodies packed close. Neri's hearth grill was designed to feel safe. Stone-top tables, dark wooden chairs, lantern-shaped lights hanging over each setting. Open kitchen at one side with chefs working in clear view. Families filled most of the tables, parents cutting meat into small bites, kids leaning into plates, couples talking around shared dishes. Cutlery clicked against ceramic. Servers moved in practiced routes, voices layered without tipping into chaos. Mira breathed in, eyes widening as she spotted the menu display on the inner wall. "They still have the fried Drask ribs, right?" "They did last week," Seth said. "We'll check." He picked a corner table that faced both the room and the window slot that showed a sliver of sky and the pale curve of another tower beyond. Habit. He liked to see exits, crowd flow, and the support beams built into the walls. A life of walking maintenance girders and signing off on structure reports had built the reflex. He removed his jacket and draped it over the back of the chair. Underneath, he wore a dark work shirt, sleeves rolled to the middle of his forearms. Faint white lines crossed the skin there, old cuts from sharp edges and one burn from an overloaded cable early in his career. His trousers were standard Spire work issue, reinforced at the knees, boots scuffed but clean. Mira slid into her seat, legs too short to reach the floor, boots swinging in small arcs. "Can I get my own plate this time? Not sharing off yours." "That is the whole point," he said. "Full plate. Your own. No stealing from mine. You always say you aren't hungry and then eat half my food. That is called quality control." She made a face at him, then turned to the menu screen. Seth looked at her for a second longer than necessary. The light from a lantern above painted her face in clear lines. Warm brown skin like his, dark curls pulled into a messy half-knot she had done herself, flecks of ink still on her fingers from school. He felt something settle in his chest. Responsibility. It lived there all the time, heavy and steady. Keep the spire stable underneath other people's feet. Keep his daughter's world ordinary and safe. That was his life's mission in simple terms. Inspect the steel. Raise the kid. Do both well enough that no one falls. He keyed in their order. A meat platter to share, extra fried Drask ribs, Zurin grain spirals for Mira, a heavier protein strip for himself, 2 glasses of plain Orvan water. He skipped dessert for now. That would become leverage if she refused vegetables. He had just confirmed payment when the restaurant door opened again. The air changed in a small way. Not the temperature, not the smell. The mood. Seth glanced toward the entrance out of habit. He always checked when a room's focus shifted. A tall woman stood just inside, just past the door sensor, but not fully in. Her posture said she was braced to retreat if someone told her to. Her skin was a soft, even green, not bright, more like a tinted human tone. Under the lanterns, it had a clean, matte finish. Her hair fell in a straight white cascade down her back, the longest parts reaching the curve of her hips. A portion of it was pulled forward over one shoulder, strands loose where the tie had slipped. She wore a sand-color wrap dress that clung to her body and ended mid-thigh. The fabric was thin, clearly secondhand, slightly worn at the edges. It was cut to draw eyes rather than protect from air conditioning. One narrow strap kept sliding down her bare shoulder, and she kept adjusting it with short, irritated movements. Her shoes were flat, off-brand, the seams beginning to split. Beside her stood a small girl with the same green skin and white hair, though the girl's hair was more tangled, some parts braided and others loose. An oversized, dark jacket hung from her shoulders, sleeves past her hands. The jacket was frayed along the cuffs and collar. Under it, Seth glimpsed a simple tunic and thin leggings, both clean but faded. The girl's eyes moved first. Big, round, too sharp for her age. They tracked a server carrying a large platter to a nearby table. Fried meat, thick slices of roasted root, sauce sliding to one edge of the plate. Her throat shifted as she swallowed. The woman's attention went to the host's stand. She stepped forward. Seth watched her expression as she approached. He saw a controlled calm. She seemed used to walking into rooms where she did not belong, and she carried herself with a stiff kind of pride that sat on top of fear. He recognized the mix. He had seen it on workers who came up from lower tiers without the right passes. Visitors from other stations who weren't sure if security would be called on them. People who knew the rules and also knew those rules were built against them. The host looked up with his professional smile. "Good evening. Table for two." The woman's voice was quiet, slightly rough at the edges. "If there is space." "Of course." He tapped his console. "May I see your credit authorization?" Her hand opened. In her palm lay a few small chips, scratched and worn. She offered them up. The host checked them. Seth saw his smile fade a fraction. The man kept his tone polite. "I'm afraid they will only cover drinks, possibly a light side dish. Our policy requires a minimum order per guest for seating during peak hours." The girl's fingers tightened in the woman's wrap. The woman's chin lifted slightly. "She is small. She can share with me." "I understand," the host said, not really understanding. "But we have to be fair to all guests. This is the family tier. It gets busy. If we seat without full orders, others will have to wait." A small line had already formed behind them. The woman in front of the next family shifted her weight, exhaled sharply through her nose. Another adult leaned toward his partner, speaking low but not low enough. They should stay on their own levels if they can't pay. Seth felt a small, hot spark of anger. It shows in his body first, a harder set to his jaw, a pressure behind his eyes. He kept his face still, but his fingers tapped once against the table. The woman at the stand, Ryla, though Seth did not know her name yet, pulled her hand back, closing her fingers around the chips. "Then we will not trouble you," she said. "We will find somewhere else." Her voice stayed steady. That control cost her something. He could see the small muscle jumping in her cheek. She turned away from the host. Her daughter stepped with her, feet dragging slightly inside worn shoes. They began to walk toward the exit. The girl's gaze slid sideways as they moved. It landed on Myra's plate. Their own food had just been set down. Drask ribs stacked in a shallow bowl, edges crisp, steam curling from the meat. A separate plate piled with grain spirals coated in a light, oily sauce. Small cups of dipping marinade. The smell was sharp, rich, full of roasted fat and spice. The girl stared. Her pupils widened. Her breath hitched once. Her lips parted, almost as if she were about to speak, then pressed together again. The hunger was plain. Not drama, not performance. Just simple need. Mira noticed. Her fork stopped midway to her mouth. She glanced from the girl to Seth. Her eyes asked a direct question he had no intention of ignoring. "You see that too, right?" Seth felt a complicated twist inside. Pity, yes, but also anger at a system that let a child stand there and watch other children eat. And under that, a quiet calculation. He had money for this meal. He had a steady job. He had chosen this restaurant because he wanted an easy evening. He also knew what it looked like to walk away and pretend he hadn't seen something that would haunt him later. He made the decision in one clear step. Emotion moved first, thought locked it in. He pushed his chair back and stood. The scrape of the legs on the floor cut through the nearest conversations. Not loud, but sharp enough to draw some looks. Seth ignored them. His body moved automatically, shoulders squared, head up, stride controlled. He walked toward the entrance, boots firm on the stone floor. The host had just lifted a hand toward Ryla again, clearly intending to escort her out in a friendly, insistent way. A server carrying a tray tried to squeeze past them at the same time. The corridor narrowed as movement converged. The server's elbow clipped Ryla's bare arm hard enough to jolt her. The tray tilted. A glass slid, catching light. She jolted sideways, pulling her daughter back, doing everything she could to avoid any collision that someone might call her fault. For a heartbeat, the room's attention pinned her there. Green skin, thin dress, straps slipping again, child pressed in her hip. Seth reached them before anyone could say anything. "They're with me," he said. His voice was low, but it carried. The host turned, surprise flickering across his face. The server caught the tray, exhaled, stepped back. "Sir," the host asked. "They're joining my table," Seth said. "2 more seats. Put their orders on my account." He raised his wrist. The payment band flashed active. His gaze stayed on the host's face, steady and unwavering. He didn't argue. He didn't justify. He simply stated fact. The host's eyes dropped to the active band. Numbers scrolled over the small display, confirming he could pay. The man hesitated for half a second, weighing policy against the hassle of saying no to a customer who looked like he knew how to escalate if pushed. The host shifted into a more careful smile. "Of course, sir, if you're certain." "I am," Seth said. Ryla stood very still. Her daughter looked up at him with open confusion. "You do not know us," Ryla said quietly. Her accent was soft, syllables slightly rounded in a way that did not match Halloran's standard. Seth met her eyes for the first time. They were deep, dark green with a lighter ring around the iris. Fear sat there, mixed with suspicion and something else. Exhaustion worn thin enough to crack. "I know you haven't eaten," he said. "That's enough for tonight." He turned slightly, motioning toward his table. The choice remained hers. He was not dragging them anywhere. The girl looked from her mother to the table with food and back again. "Mama," she whispered, "can we sit?" Her voice broke on the last word. That sound made the decision for Ryla. Her shoulders dropped the smallest amount. She inhaled, then nodded once. "Thank you," she said to Seth, the words stiff, as if they hurt to say. "We will not cause trouble. If anyone causes trouble," he said, "it won't be you." He led them back through the rows of tables. Mira watched them approach, eyes wide but welcoming. She shifted on her bench, moving her plate slightly to create space for another in front of her. Seth took his seat again and gestured to the 2 empty chairs at their table. One beside him, one beside Mira. Ryla paused, assessing. Her gaze flicked to the seat next to Seth, then to the one across, then to the room in a quick scan. She chose the seat opposite him, placing the table between them. She kept her daughter closer to Mira, as if pausing to test the human child first. The girl climbed onto the seat. Her oversized jacket caught on the chair edge. Seth saw the small struggle and reached out instinctively, steadying the chair without touching her. She looked at him briefly, then at Mira. "I'm Mira," Seth's daughter said. "You can sit next to me. I don't bite. Usually." A small smile tugged at the corner of the girl's mouth. "Tavi," she said. "I am Tavi." Ryla sat with controlled posture. Back straight, knees together, one hand resting on the edge of the table. She pulled her dress down an inch, keeping the hem secure. The strap slipped again. She adjusted it quickly. Seth signaled the server. "Can we add 2 meals?" he asked. "Fish and whatever meat is fastest, plus grain spirals and 1 large dessert to share." "Of course," the server said. "Any drinks?" "Water for both," Ryla said sharply, before Tavi could speak. "Just water." Mira glanced at Seth. "Make it 2 waters and 1 small juice," he said. "For the kids." Ryla opened her mouth to object, then closed it. Her jaw worked as she swallowed the protest. The server nodded and moved off. Silence settled at the table for a moment. It wasn't calm yet. It was a thin, waiting silence where everyone checked what kind of situation this was going to turn into. Seth broke it quietly. "I'm Seth. This is my daughter. You are from here," Ryla said. "Yes." She looked down at her hands. "We are not." He had guessed. The accent, the dress, the way she had stood in the doorway. "Which level are you on?" he asked. 19, she said. "Dorm row. Migrant block." That explained the weariness in her posture. Level 19 was service housing. Narrow corridors, cheap bunks, shared wash units. People who cleaned the places like this restaurant, washed the bed sheets, emptied the waste compartments. "What brings you up to the family tier?" Seth asked. His tone stayed neutral. Not interrogation. Conversation. Ryla hesitated again, then answered. "Tavi wanted to see where the school children eat. She hears the stories." Her eyes flicked to Mira. "Real plates. Hot food. No queue. You were going to buy something?" Seth said. "A broth cup," she said. "If they allowed us to sit." I hoped. Her voice thinned for a heartbeat. She steadied it. I miscounted the cost. Shame pressed through her words now, low and dense. Seth saw how she pulled her shoulders tighter when she said it. Her mission had been simple. Give her daughter one evening in a place that felt normal, even if it was only a cup of thin soup. She had failed before they reached a table. Tavi moved her hand on the table, tracing a circle on the stone with one finger. "I just wanted to sit where the lights are warm," she said, barely audible. Seth felt his throat tighten. He took a drink of water to clear it. The server returned with extra plates. 2 sets of cutlery, an additional bowl of Drask ribs, a pile of grain spirals, and a glass of diluted orange juice. Steam drifted up from the meat. The ribs' edges had crisped, and the smell of rendered fat and spice hit hard and immediate. Tavi locked onto the bowl. Her hands curled into small fists on her lap to keep from reaching before anyone told her she could. "Eat," Ryla murmured. "Go on." Tavi looked at Seth. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "It's yours." The girl picked up her fork and took one small, testing bite. The hot meat burned the tip of her tongue slightly. She flinched, then chewed anyway. Flavor hit, and her eyes brightened faintly. She chewed faster. "Slowly," Ryla warned. "You will hurt your stomach." Tavi tried to slow, but her body betrayed her. After weeks of ration portions and cold leftovers from laundry shifts, her instinct was to get as much in as possible in case it disappeared. "Take your time," Seth said. "No one is taking it away." He realized as he said it that he was making a promise that went beyond one meal. The words felt heavier than their surface meaning. Across from him, Ryla picked up her own fork with more restraint. She took a bite of meat. Her hand trembled slightly. Her face remained composed, but her eyes closed for half a second as the warmth hit her mouth and went down. Her body had been running on low-grade fuel for too long. Hot protein, real fat, proper spice, that was hitting like medicine. Seth watched her silently. A part of him analyzed her the way he analyzed structures. Weight distribution, weak points, load-bearing lines. He saw how thin she really was under the curves, how her collarbones showed more sharply than they should, how tired her eyes looked even with makeup hiding the worst of it. "What do you do on 19? He asked after a moment. "Laundry rotation," she said. "Uniforms. Performance costumes. Table linens." Her mouth twisted slightly. "Sometimes reception work too, if they need someone to stand in a doorway and smile." The dress made sense now. Not something she bought by choice. Something left over from a job where she was expected to be decorative. Seth felt anger at that, steady and controlled. He made himself keep his voice level. "Do they pay you properly?" "They pay enough to keep a bunk," she said. "And the leftover plates when the kitchen forgets to pull them from the tray." She looked at Tavi. "It is not always enough for both of us." Mira listened quietly while pretending to focus on her own meat. She chewed slowly, thoughtful. After a moment, she nudged her plate closer to Tavi. "You can have some mine too," she said. "I usually get full." Tavi stared at the extra ribs being pushed her way. Her throat worked again. Her eyes flicked to Ryla for approval. Ryla hesitated, then nodded once. "Say thank you." "Thank you," Tavi said. "You're welcome," Mira replied. "We can share. It tastes better that way." The comment was simple but true. The air at the table shifted a little. Less strained. more like a normal family meal. Someone at the next table got up to leave. As they passed, the woman glanced at Ryla's exposed shoulder and bare legs, then at the children. Her expression tightened with disapproval. She whispered something to her partner. They walked out faster than necessary. Ryla's body reacted first. Her back straightened, muscles pulling tight, fingers clenching on her fork. Her eyes dropped to her plate. Her breathing shallowed. She had seen that look many times. A stranger slotting her into a category, cheap, improper, out of place. Shame hit her like a physical weight. Old memories surfaced, hands grabbing too familiar in a crowded hallway. Managers instructing her to smile more, while men looked at her chest instead of her face. Seth saw the change. He looked at the departing couple, then back at Ryla. He did not call the strangers out. That would turn her into a spectacle, the last thing she needed. Instead, he shifted his chair closer to hers by a few centimeters. The movement was small but deliberate. He placed his forearm on the table, strong hand relaxed near her plate, visibly unbothered by her presence. "You're fine," he said quietly. "Eat. Rest. No one in this place gets to decide whether you belong at a table. That's my decision tonight." Ryla glanced at his hand, at the veins under his skin, the scars across his knuckles. His calm tone sank deeper than if he had raised his voice. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. The question carried a hard edge. Distrust protected her more than gratitude ever had. Seth held her gaze. "I check the foundations of this city for a living," he said. "My job is making sure families on Tier 30 don't wake up in the ocean. I walk girders, I fix cracks, I sign papers that say people are safe. Today I watched my daughter eat while your child stared at her plate like it was the last food in the world. That felt like a crack I could fix right now." He did not say he saw her as a project. He did not. She was not a structural fault. She was a person, but the logic still applied. See damage, repair what he can. Ryla studied him as he spoke. She saw the way he sat, balanced, solid, not leaning in to corner her, but not backing away either. No drunken sway, no hungry stare. His eyes stayed level with hers, not drifting down her dress. "You have your own problems," she said finally. "You look tired." He huffed once, a dry sound. "That is accurate. But feeding 2 more mouths tonight is not going to break me." "And tomorrow?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately. The weight of that question was larger than one evening. He felt it and did not try to dodge it with a joke. "For tonight," he said, "we start with this." He nodded at her plate. "We see what tomorrow looks like when it gets here." Her jaw softened a fraction. She turned back to her food and ate another bite. Mira and Tavi were talking now in low, fast sentences about school. Mira described her classroom on Tier 22. The desks, the slate wall, the strict tutor who always smelled faintly of cleaning solvents. Tavi listened intensely, absorbing details of a life she was not registered to access. "You go every day?" Tavi asked. "Except rest days," Mira said. "They make us eat in the tier cafeteria. It's noisy. Food is not as good as here, though." "We cannot go," Tavi said. "They say my papers are wrong." Ryla's hand tightened on her fork briefly. Seth saw it. He frowned. "No registration?" Ryla shook her head once. "We arrived after the last intake cycle. The office said we must wait. They always say wait. Did you bring records from your home colony?" Seth asked. "A data shard." The clerk did not bother to read it. He saw our status code and moved us into the holding file. "Which registry office?" Seth said. "Level 16, Wing C." He mentally noted that. He knew that office. He had signed off on some of their emergency structural upgrades last year after a leak. He knew the layout, the staff rotation schedule, the kind of laziness that hid behind words like backlog. He felt another decision forming in his mind. A secondary mission taking shape beside the larger one of raising his own child. He planned to guide Ryla through the steps she needed to get Tavi a proper entry, even if the registry clerks dragged their feet. He saw the path, form codes, appeal routes, the contact he had in maintenance who owed him a favor and had a cousin in admin. None of that would be fast, but it was possible. He did not tell her that plan yet. Promises meant responsibility, and he refused to throw words around lightly. For now, he focused on the table. The meat disappeared slowly. The grain spirals vanished in small bites, sauce scraped up with forks until the plates were almost clean. Tavi tried the juice. Her eyes widened at the sweetness. She smiled at Mira without defensive caution for the first time. When they were almost done, a server placed a shared plate of Larn fruit crumble in the center, as requested. Thick pieces of baked fruit under a crisp top, the edges slightly browned, steam rising where the crust had split, revealing glossy filling. The two girls stared. "For spoons," Seth said. The server laid them down. Tavi waited, looking at Ryla again. Ryla gave a small nod. The girl took a spoon, careful hands shaking a little, scooped a portion, and brought it to her mouth. Her eyes closed when the hot, sweet fruit hit her tongue. She held the spoon there for a second, savoring. Mira dug in too. Within a minute, they were negotiating bite sizes, trading crust for soft center, laughing in short bursts. Their voices blended easily. Ryla watched them, some of the hardness draining from her expression. The sight of her daughter laughing at a table, instead of eating alone on a bunk row, hit her hard. Emotion rose in her chest. She swallowed it down. She could not afford to cry in the middle of a tier restaurant. Seth saw the sheen in her eyes. He looked away deliberately, giving her the privacy of that moment. When the crumble was nearly gone, Tavi slowed. She put her spoon down and leaned into her mother, pressing her head against Ryla's upper arm. Her voice came out very small. "I don't want to go back to eating cold scraps, Mama," she said. The sentence hung between them, simple and heavy. Ryla's hand came up instantly, fingers sliding into Tavi's hair. She stroked down once gently. Her throat worked as she tried to answer. Seth felt that line like a blow. It stripped away any remaining distance. His plans, his careful boundaries about getting involved in other people's lives, all shifted. He looked at Mira, at how she watched Tavi, her brow furrowed. He thought about the spire's thick support beams below them, about cracks that spread when ignored. He made another quiet decision, this one bigger than the choice to pay for a meal. He was not going to let this be a single evening of kindness followed by nothing. He would see these two again. He would find ways to fold them into a safer routine, step by step, without turning their lives into charity cases. He didn't say any of that out loud yet. Inside, his mind mapped out the start, where their dorm block was, which corridors he would need to walk, which questions he could ask without spooking them. For now, he reached for the bill prompt on his band and closed the tab for all 4 meals. "Eat until you're full," he said quietly. "Then we'll get you back to 19. Ryla met his eyes again. There was still suspicion there, but now it mingled with something else. Unwilling gratitude. Hope she didn't trust. She nodded once. "Thank you, Seth." He inclined his head in answer. Outside, the storm ocean continued to pound against the spire's lower structure. Inside, at one small table in Neri's hearth grill, 4 people sat together over empty plates, and a new line of connection formed in the quiet space that followed the last bite. Seth led them out of Neri's hearth grill once the plates were cleared and the girls' hands were wiped clean. The air in the corridor felt cooler after the dense warmth of the restaurant. The steady hum of the ventilation system followed them as they stepped onto the walkway leading toward the lifts. Evening shift lights dimmed a little, programmed to soften the tier for night cycle. Mira kept close to Tavi, talking quietly. Ryla walked half a step behind Seth, not out of fear, but out of caution. She held the frayed edge of Tavi's jacket to keep the child near her side. Her dress moved with the controlled pace of someone aware of every eye that might be watching. Seth slowed his steps until he matched her stride. "Is your dorm block close to the lift?" 3 corridors down from the platform, Ryla said. "The hallway bends twice before the bunks." "Safe enough to walk at night?" he asked. She hesitated. "Safe enough if you look confident." Her tone made it clear she never felt fully safe there. Seth didn't push, but the information settled heavily in his mind. They reached the lift. The doors opened with a muted hiss. A pair of service workers stepped out, nodding at Seth, recognizing the uniform band on his wrist. Seth guided Ryla and the children inside. The lift sealed, and the descent indicator blinked steadily. 30, 28, 25. Tavi pressed closer to Ryla as the lift dropped. The motion wasn't rough, but her small fingers curled into her mother's wrap. Seth noticed the tension in both of them. "You all right?" Mira asked, leaning toward Tavi. "The lift's just fast. My stomach used to flip too." Tavi nodded once. "It feels strange." "You get used to it," Mira said. "My dad says the lower we go, the louder the ocean gets." Ryla looked at Seth. "Is the spire stable at night?" "I heard the anchors shift." Seth shook his head. "Anchors don't shift. You hear pressure changes from the ocean hitting the pylons. Sounds worse than it is." He kept his voice solid, factual. "I'd tell you if something was unsafe." Ryla studied him a moment, as if deciding how much she believed that. Her eyes softened a little. "You work on the pylons? Every day?" "Most days," he said. "Some inspections. Some repairs. Some nights I've slept on brace platforms because the weather cycle wouldn't let us climb down." He looked at her directly. "If the spire had a problem, I'd know before anyone. You're not living on something ready to fall." She looked away, relieved, but trying not to show it. The lift passed level 20. The lighting changed gradually, less warm, more neutral. Facilities for lower-tier living. More maintenance signs. More access hatches. Level 19 blinked on the display. The doors opened. The air here had a slight chemical smell from cleaning solvents and recycled washers. The corridor lights hummed. The walkway flooring was metal, not stone. Patterns of where showed where hundreds of feet passed every day. Voices echoed faintly from deeper inside the block. Ryla stepped out first, adjusting her strap again, tugging it tight enough to stop slipping. Tavi kept Myra's hand without being told. That small detail eased some of the stiffness in Ryla's posture. "This way," she said. Seth followed them down the first corridor. The brightness faded the farther they walked. Pipes lined the ceiling. A cleaning drone sat powered off against the wall. Older model, one of the ones that rattled loudly when activated. Seth made a mental note. The block hadn't received the upgrades he'd recommended months ago. As they turned into the second hallway, a dorm supervisor stepped out of the side office. Middle-aged, tired, carrying a data pad. Her eyes went straight to Ryla's dress, then to Seth. "You have a visitor walking with you?" the supervisor asked sharply. Ryla straightened. "He is escorting us back." The supervisor crossed her arms. "Men aren't supposed to enter the family corridor past curfew unless they're registered visitors." Ryla stiffened. "We're not past curfew." "Almost," the supervisor said. Her gaze flicked to Seth. "You're from the inspection teams?" "Yes," Seth said calmly. "We don't need trouble from residents bringing men in without notice," the supervisor continued. "Next time, use the front hall." Ryla's jaw tightened. Tavi shrank behind her slightly. Mira frowned at the tone. Seth stepped forward, not aggressively, but with enough presence that the supervisor's eyes lifted to meet his instead of lingering on Ryla. "I'll walk them here," he said. "That's all. No disturbance. No violation." The supervisor weighed the moment, realized he wasn't backing down, and exhaled sharply. "Fine. Just make sure you exit the same way you came." She turned away. Ryla let out a slow breath, shoulders lowering. "She thinks any woman with a man is doing something shameful," she murmured. Seth kept his voice low. "I noticed." They reached her dorm row. Narrow door frames lined both sides. Ryla stopped at one with a faded blue strip above the frame. The door was slightly misaligned in its hinge, scraping faintly at the bottom when she opened it. Seth leaned down, checking the frame. "Your hinge is bent. Someone force it." Ryla gave a tired nod. "Another resident slammed it when the latch stuck last week." "I can fix it," Seth said. "You don't have to." "I'm here," he said. "It'll take 5 minutes." She stepped back, allowing him to enter the threshold. The dorm was small, a narrow bed for Ryla, a folded cot for Tavi, a single storage trunk, a small shelf with a few pieces of clothing, one cracked mirror panel attached to the wall. It looked clean but worn. Nothing on the walls. No decorative fabric. Just essentials. Tavi tugged Mira toward the cot. "This is where I sleep," she said. Mira looked around quietly, absorbing every detail. "It's small," she said finally, "but it feels warm." Ryla blinked at that. Compliments were rare here. Seth crouched by the hinge, examining the screws. "Do you have a toolkit?" Ryla opened the trunk. Only a basic one. That's enough. Seth took the small wrench and straightened the bracket with slow pressure. The metal creaked, but shifted into place. He adjusted the screws until the door lined up smoothly with the frame. He tested it, opening and closing it twice. There, it won't scrape anymore. Tavi watched him with round eyes. How did you do that? Work, Seth said. I fix things. Can you fix everything? No, he said, but I can fix this door. Tavi gave a quiet smile and stepped closer. She reached up and touched the hinge lightly, checking if it wobbled. It feels safe now. Ryla's breath caught. She lowered herself onto the edge of her bed, the tension in her spine easing slightly. Thank you, she said. The words sounded different this time, softer, lacking the earlier resistance. No one else in this place fixes anything unless we beg. Seth stood, returning the wrench to her. If something breaks, tell me. I'm here during the day's cycle anyway. I can check on my way down. Ryla looked at him sharply. You already did enough tonight. It wasn't enough, he said. Not if you're living like this. She held his gaze for a second too long, searching for the part of him she expected to be dangerous. It wasn't there. That made her more unsettled than if he had shown interest openly. Mira tugged on Seth's sleeve. Dad, can Tavi come eat with us again? Tavi looked hopeful for a moment, then tried to hide it. That depends on your mother, Seth said. Ryla hesitated. We do not want to intrude. You didn't, he said. If you join us again, it's because you choose to. Tavi touched Ryla's arm. I liked it. The lights. The warm plates. Ryla lowered her head, touched her daughter's cheek briefly, then looked back at Seth. Maybe one day this week. After my shift. Tell me which day, he said. I'll make arrangements. The dorm lights flickered once. Old wiring. Tavi flinched before she could stop herself. Mira moved closer to her, placing a hand on the girl's back with simple, instinctive comfort. Ryla's jaw tightened at that reaction. She smoothed Tavi's hair. The lights do that sometimes, she said softly. It's just the switchboard. Seth stored that detail away too. He stepped back toward the doorway. You two get some rest. You had a long day. Ryla stood as well, keeping one hand on Tavi's back. Walk safe upstairs. I will. Their eyes met in the dim corridor. No flirtation, not yet. Something steadier. A recognition of responsibility forming between them. Tavi raised her hand in a small wave. Good night, Seth. Good night, Tavi. Mira waved too. See you soon. Ryla opened her mouth to correct it, but didn't. Something about the tone, the warmth in Myra's voice, stopped her. Seth stepped out into the corridor. The door moved smoothly behind him when Ryla tested it once more. As he walked back toward the lift with Mira holding his hand, he felt the weight of new decisions settling into place. He wasn't just returning two people to their room. He was stepping into a responsibility he hadn't expected to take on. And for the first time in months, that responsibility didn't feel like a burden. It felt right. The lift carried Seth and Mira back up toward the upper tiers. The rise was smooth, but Mira leaned into his side anyway. Her fingers wrapped around his sleeve the same way they had when she was younger and unsure of the world. She's nice, Mira said quietly. Tavi, she talks soft, but she listens hard. Seth glanced down at her. You noticed that? Yeah. Mira shrugged. Kids like that, they hear everything, even when adults think they don't. He understood more in her tone than she probably meant to reveal. She remembered the months after her mother died, when conversations around her had been quiet, careful, never enough. She had listened to every silence. Did you like them? Seth asked. Mira nodded. Yeah, she's fun. The lift slowed at their tier. The warm air from the restaurant level washed over them again as they stepped out. People moved past with relaxed pace, families heading home, groups returning from shops, a pair of maintenance workers arguing about a leaky valve. Normal movement, familiar noise. Seth took Myra's hand again as they walked toward their living pod. Not because she needed it, but because it grounded him. After the tension on level 19, the tier felt almost too calm. He keyed open their door. The lights came up in soft steps. Their home was small, but lived in. 2 beds in separate corners, a narrow table with a half-finished school project, a small cooking unit built into the wall, and Myra's drawings taped above the sink. Mira kicked off her boots. "Can I have juice before bed?" "Half a cup," Seth said. "Brush teeth after." She saluted him with a grin and darted into the kitchenette. Seth hung his jacket by the door. He stayed there for a moment, leaning a shoulder against the frame, adjusting to the quiet. His mind hadn't left Ryla and Tavi. He kept seeing the bent door hinge, the flickering lights, the tightness around Ryla's eyes when the supervisor spoke down to her. He went to the table and sat heavily. He rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the strain from the long shift. But his thoughts kept circling back to the same point. Tonight couldn't be the last time he stepped down to 19. Mira returned with her juice. She sat across from him, swinging her feet. "Dad, when can we see them again?" Seth looked at her. His daughter rarely asked for company. She liked people, but she was selective. And she had lost enough that she didn't attach quickly. The fact she wanted to see Tavi again mattered. "We'll plan something," Seth said. "Maybe after her mom's next shift." "I'll ask." Mira brightened. "Can we bring food next time?" "Not restaurant food. I can help make something." "We could bring extra." Seth exhaled slowly. "We can do that." Mira hesitated, then spoke more softly. Tavi looked scared when the lights flickered. "Do they do that a lot down there?" "Probably," Seth said. "Old wiring. Can you fix it?" "If I can get access," he said. "It's not my assigned zone, but I'll figure something out." She nodded like that answer satisfied her. She finished her juice, rinsed the cup, and headed to the washroom. Seth stayed at the table, listening to the running water. His mind traced the walkways, the lift schedules, the dorm layout. He tried to imagine how many other rooms on that level had loose hinges, broken lights, or doors that didn't close properly. He knew the answer: too many. When Mira came back out in her sleep clothes, he tucked her into bed. She curled up instantly, her hair loose around her face. "Dad, yes. Will they be okay tonight?" Seth's jaw tightened. "They'll be all right," he said. "But if something needs fixing, I'll see to it." "Okay," she whispered. He stayed at her bedside until her breathing settled into an even rhythm. When she was asleep, Seth moved quietly around the apartment, closing cabinets, straightening the table, checking that the lock indicator was green. The routine steadied him, but it didn't chase away the feeling lingering from the dorm corridor. He stepped to the window slit above the kitchen counter. The view showed a small slice of the city, walkways lit in amber, other towers rising in clean lines, safe and silent. Somewhere far beneath it all, Ryla's dorm row sat in dimmer light. He thought of the way she had stood at the restaurant entrance, shoulders tight, eyes calculating every direction she could get pushed from. He thought of her daughter asking if he could fix everything. He wasn't built to walk away from that. He checked the time. Still early enough that level 19 would be awake. But showing up unannounced at her door tonight would feel intrusive. She needed space, not pressure. So he made another decision. He keyed open the storage drawer near the sink. Inside were spare tools, a compact wrench, 2 multi-purpose drivers, wire tape, an old but functional panel tester. He collected them quietly. Tomorrow, he would stop by the maintenance office on level 18 and request access to the dorm switchboard under the pretext of a routine check. No one would argue with a safety inspector. They never did. He planned to check their lights, their hinges, their door frames, and whatever else needed fixing. He planned to guide her through the registration process for Tavi. He planned to stand there long enough that she understood she didn't have to navigate everything alone. He set the tools on the table, one by one. When he finally lay down in his bed, he pulled the thin blanket over himself and stared at the ceiling. The apartment was quiet, but sleep didn't come easily. Not because he was restless, because his mind was already on level 19. He closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he would go back. Not as a gesture, as a beginning. Seth woke before the alarm, the faint hum of the circulation vents already running through the apartment. The lights were still low, set to pre-dawn mode. He sat up slowly, feeling the stiffness in his shoulders from yesterday's inspections, and a sharper tension carried over from level 19. He pushed the blanket aside and walked to the kitchenette, bare feet on the cool floor tiles. He filled a cup from the dispenser and drank half of it before the system finished the automatic temperature adjustment. Mira was still asleep, curled on her side with her hair covering half her face. He changed into his work clothes. Dark reinforced trousers, a clean inspection shirt, boots with worn soles. Before leaving, he slipped the small toolkit into his jacket pocket. Nothing obvious, just the basics he used for field checks. He paused at Myra's door. "I'll be back before your school shift," he said softly, even though she wouldn't hear him. Habit. Reassurance built into his routine. The hallway outside their pod was quiet. A few early workers passed him, heading toward the transit track. Their expressions were the same as his. Focused, resigned, already thinking about the long cycle ahead. Instead of heading to the pylon walkway, he turned toward the south lift, the one that would take him to level 19. Inside the lift, he kept his stance steady as it fell through the tiers. A pair of cleaners entered at level 25. They recognized him by his inspection band and nodded politely. He nodded back without explaining why he was going to 19 at dawn. When the doors opened, the change in temperature and lighting was immediate. Dimmer bulbs, a colder smell from the older ventilation system, more metal underfoot. He stepped out and moved toward Ryla's corridor. Workers were already up, some heading to laundry shifts, others to early cleaning cycles. He reached the dorm row quietly. Ryla's door, now properly aligned, sat closed with no scrape marks along the floor. He knocked once, soft enough not to alarm them, firm enough to show intention. The door opened a few seconds later. Ryla stood in the doorway in a simple dark tunic that fell mid-thigh and a narrow belt tied loosely around her waist. Her hair hung straight down her back, still damp as if she had washed it moments before. Her skin looked slightly pale in the cooler light of the corridor. She blinked at him, surprised but not frightened. "You're here early. You have a morning shift," Seth said. "I thought I'd check your corridor lights before you left." Ryla exhaled softly. "The lights again. They flickered last night," he said, "which means the switchboard is overdue for maintenance." She stepped aside to let him in. "I only have a few minutes." Tavi is awake. Tavi sat on the bed, pulling on her shoes. The same oversized jacket lay beside her. She brightened instantly when she saw him. "You came back." "I said I would," Seth replied. Ryla watched the interaction carefully. Not distrustful. More like she was trying to measure how much of this she could rely on without it becoming another disappointment. He crouched near the wall panel. "Your building supervisor won't mind if I run a diagnostic. They've been ignoring this tier's maintenance reports." Ryla folded her arms lightly across her abdomen. "They say it's because we're not full citizens." He tightened the last screw without looking up. Electricity doesn't care about citizenship. A faint smile tugged at her lips, quick and reluctant. The panel clicked open. The wiring looked older than he expected. He tapped his tester against the connector and watched the light flicker. "Loose feed line," he murmured. "I can stabilize it. Not perfect, but better than nothing until the main techs come." Ryla stepped closer to look. She didn't get too close, just enough that he could feel her presence behind him. "The lights woke Tavi last night," she said quietly. "She doesn't sleep well when the hallway sounds change." Tavi tugged her jacket on and looked between them. "Sometimes it scares me," she said in a small voice. Seth tightened the connector. "They won't flicker tonight. I'll make sure of it." Tavi nodded and reached for a small pack. Mira had given her an old pencil yesterday, tucked inside the jacket pocket. She touched it gently, as if checking it was still there. Ryla moved toward the storage trunk and pulled out her work clothes, a fitted gray top and simple work trousers. She kept them folded neatly. "I need to get to the laundry hall," she said. "If I'm late, they give the better sections to others." "I'll walk you both," Seth said. "I'm heading toward the inspection deck anyway." "You don't need to escort us," she said. "I know." Something in his voice made her pause. She didn't argue again. They stepped into the hallway. The repaired door closed behind them without a sound. Tavi held Ryla's hand with one, and with the other she held the strap of her small pack tightly. As they started down the corridor, a pair of residents passed them, glancing between Seth and Ryla. Ryla kept her gaze straight ahead, chin lifted, not defiant, controlled. Seth walked half a step to her right, not crowding her, close enough to show he wouldn't let anyone bother them. As they turned a corner toward the lift platform, Tavi slowed. She tugged gently at Seth's sleeve. He leaned slightly toward her. I don't know what we're allowed to do here, she whispered. I don't want to make trouble. Ryla looked down at her. You're not making any trouble. Tavi swallowed. Sometimes people look at us like we shouldn't be here. Seth crouched, so they were eye level. Look at me. She did. You're walking to breakfast and then to your mother's work hall, he said. That's what you're allowed to do. She nodded slowly, absorbing the certainty in his tone. The lift arrived. They stepped inside. The ride was short, just 2 levels up to the laundry block. When the doors opened, warm air spilled out, carrying the smell of detergent and steam. Workers wheeled baskets of uniforms toward the washing bays. Others folded linens on wide metal tables. It was busy, loud, but orderly. Ryla glanced at him. I'll be here for most of the day. I know where to find you, Seth said. He didn't hide it. She adjusted Tavi's jacket collar. Stay near the waiting bench. And don't wander. Tavi nodded. Yes, Mama. Seth looked at Ryla. Do you need anything before I go? Food for her. Extra credits for breakfast. Her shoulders tightened slightly. We ate enough last night. That was last night, Seth said. I'll bring something on my way back. Ryla hesitated, then gave a small nod. Not agreement, permission. Before she turned toward the folding tables, she stopped and looked directly at him. Her voice lowered so the workers around them wouldn't hear. You're kind, she said. Dangerously kind. People in places like this, they notice when someone pays too much attention. They can notice, Seth said. It won't change what I do. Her eyes lingered on him for a long second. She didn't smile. She didn't step closer. But something in her posture shifted. Less guarded, less braced for harm. Tavi waved at him. Come back soon. I will, Seth said. Ryla stepped into the busy hall, her long white hair catching the overhead lights. Tavi followed, clutching her pack, glancing back twice. Seth watched them disappear into the rows of laundry units. He turned toward the inspection route, his stride steady and deliberate. He hadn't planned on adding 2 people to the rhythm of his days. But now they were there, firmly woven into the space where intentions turned into choices. He headed to the maintenance office first. There were more things he needed to fix today. Seth returned to level 19 in the late afternoon, the workday still running through his muscles. His shirt carried the faint smell of metal dust and ocean air from the outer platforms. He had stopped at a vendor on Tier 22 and picked up 2 sealed meal packs. Nothing fancy, just warm protein slices and grain stew, but enough to make sure Tavi didn't go another night hungry. When he stepped off the lift, the corridor lights stayed steady. No flicker. The repairs he made that morning held. The walkway was busier now, workers coming off shifts, others heading to evening rotations. Conversations blended in short bursts. Complaints about long hours, jokes traded between neighbors, the harsh scrape of a cart wheel that needed oil. Seth headed toward the laundry block first. The double doors were propped open to let the heat escape. Steam rolled out in waves, carrying the heavy smell of detergent and warm fabric. Inside, washing units thumped rhythmically. People sorted uniforms into folded stacks. Tavi sat on the waiting bench near the entrance, legs swinging, jacket bunched at her sides. She saw him and straightened instantly. You came back. I said I would, Seth said. She hopped off the bench. Mama's on break soon. He handed her one of the meal packs. You can eat half now. Save the rest for later. Tavi cupped the package with both hands, as if afraid it would vanish. She didn't open it yet. She looked toward the folding tables. Go tell her I'm here, Seth said. Tavi nodded and ran down the aisle, weaving between workers. A few glanced at her, more curious than annoyed. Ryla appeared moments later, breath warm from the laundry heat, skin slightly flushed from the steam. Her hair was tied back loosely with a strip of cloth, a few strands sticking to her cheek. She wore her work trousers and a fitted gray top with rolled sleeves. She had a pair of damp linens draped over her arm. She approached carefully, her expression guarded until she saw what Tavi held. You brought food again. It's just a meal pack, Seth said. Nothing big. She accepted it from Tavi, testing the weight with her palm. It's big to us. Her voice was quiet but clear. She shifted her stance slightly, almost embarrassed by her own reaction. She looked at him with something deeper than gratitude, something uncertain, something trying to understand his motives. He didn't explain himself. "You done soon?" he asked. "Another hour," Ryla said, folding and sorting. Seth nodded. "I'll come back." Ryla hesitated. "You have your own work." "I finished my inspections." She studied him. "Then yes. Come back." Tavi pulled Seth's sleeve. "Can I show you something?" Seth followed her as she walked to the side of the entrance, where a metal vent grate stuck crookedly out of the wall. Someone had tried kicking it into place earlier, leaving a dent. "It makes a scary whistle at night," Tavi said. "Sometimes it wakes people." Seth crouched and touched the grate. "Loose." The airflow hissed softly through the gap. "I can fix this too," he said. He pulled his driver from his pocket and realigned the metal. 2 screws tightened cleanly. The whistle disappeared. The airflow smoothed into a soft hum. Tavi grinned, proud of her discovery. "You can fix everything." Seth shook his head. "Not everything. But you fix the things that make noise," she said, matter of fact. "Those are a good place to start." Ryla watched them from her station, her hands moving automatically over the linens while her eyes stayed fixed on the 2 of them. The sight unsettled her in a way she couldn't name. Seth didn't act like a man trying to impress her. He didn't look for thanks. He just worked, steady and sure. When her break ended, Seth stepped away to give her space. Tavi returned to the bench, opening the meal pack carefully. Steam rose from the warm protein slices. She ate slowly at first, savoring each bite. "You can eat faster," Seth said quietly. "I'm trying to make it last," she said. He looked down at her. "You don't have to ration when you're with me." Tavi blinked up at him. "Mama says don't rely on anyone. People leave." Seth sat beside her. The bench creaked slightly under his weight. "People leave when they choose to leave." Tavi hesitated. "Are you choosing to stay?" He didn't answer immediately. Not because he didn't know, but because he wanted the timing to be right. "I'm choosing to be here now," he said. Tavi accepted that. For a child who had learned uncertainty early, now meant more than most promises. An hour later, the laundry unit quieted. Workers began stacking baskets and cleaning moisture from the floor. Ryla wiped her hands on a cloth and came to them. "Shift's done," she said. "Walk home together," Seth said. She gave a small nod. They stepped out into the cooler corridor. The scent of detergent faded behind them. Seth walked to Ryla's right again, steady, without comment. Tavi walked between them, holding on to both of their hands. Halfway down the hallway, another resident stepped out of a room, young, tired, carrying a crate of folded uniforms. She stared at Seth, then at Ryla, eyebrows lifting in pointed curiosity. "Well," the woman said, "you move fast." Ryla's spine stiffened. "It's not what you think." The woman smirked. "It never is." Ryla's jaw locked, but she didn't fire back. She kept walking. Tavi's grip tightened on her hand. Seth's voice cut through the corridor, low and even. "Watch your hallway manners," he said. The resident stopped mid-step. His tone carried enough weight that she didn't attempt a reply. She turned into another room and shut the door. Ryla looked at Seth, surprised. "You didn't have to say anything." "Yes," he said. "I did." They walked the rest of the way in silence. Not uncomfortable, charged in a different way. When they reached Ryla's dorm door, she unlocked it and stepped inside, holding it open for Tavi. Seth stayed at the threshold, not crossing in. Ryla looked at him, her voice quieter than before. "Why do you help us this much?" "Because you need it," Seth said. "And because I can." Her fingers tightened around the doorframe. Her breath came slower, softer, as if his answer stirred something she wasn't prepared to show. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it. She tried again. "This place, people don't do things like this," she said. "Not without wanting something. I haven't asked you for anything." "That's what I don't understand," she said. Seth held her gaze. "You can learn at your pace." Tavi peeked out from inside the room. "Mama? Are you coming in?" "Yes, Tavi," she said, eyes still on Seth. She stepped back, pulling the door halfway closed before pausing again. "Will you come tomorrow?" she asked. "Yes," Seth said. "If you want me to." She swallowed. "I do." The door shut slowly. Seth turned and headed toward the lift, the corridor humming around him, his footsteps steady. The day had been long, but the path ahead felt clearer than it had yesterday. The next morning began before sunrise again, but this time Seth didn't rush. He moved with a deliberate calm, shaving slowly at the small mirror, wiping the counter, packing Myra's school lunch with practiced hands. Mira watched him from the table, chin in her palms. "You're going back to 19, she said. Not a question. Yes. For them. For all of us, Seth answered. Mira didn't push further. She tied her hair into a loose bun, grabbed her pack, and walked beside him toward the transit line. He dropped her at the school gate, ruffled her hair once, and headed toward the lift that would take him down. By the time Seth reached level 19, morning shift had already begun. The corridor lights held steady, his repairs still working. He passed a few residents who gave him longer looks than yesterday. Word had spread fast on a level this compact. He reached Ryla's door and knocked once. It opened immediately. Ryla stood there fully dressed, hair brushed straight down her back, clean tunic tucked into her trousers. She looked more rested than the day before, though the stiffness in her shoulders remained. Tavi stood at her side, pulling on her jacket. "You came early," Ryla said. "You start early," Seth replied. Tavi stepped forward. "Mama's not in laundry today." Seth raised an eyebrow. "No." Ryla hesitated. "They moved me to sanitation rotation." He knew the schedule. Sanitation rotation was more physically demanding, cleaning utility halls, recycling chutes, drain panels. Fewer breaks, fewer opportunities to sit. Hard on the back. "You okay with that?" he asked. "It's work," she said simply. "Work is work." But Seth heard the strain she didn't show. He noticed the slight swelling in her fingers from yesterday's folding. The red marks where the laundry steam had irritated her skin. "Where's your rotation area?" he asked. "Wing E, near the lower water pumps." "That's not close," he said. "We'll walk." He didn't give her room to argue, and she didn't try. They stepped into the corridor together. This time, Ryla didn't keep distance between them. She walked beside him, matching his pace. Tavi stayed near Myra's pencil tucked into her jacket pocket, touching it like a charm. As they reached the main walkway, the early crowd thickened. Workers hurried through, some carrying bins, others carrying tools. A few slowed at the sight of Seth at Ryla's side. A pair of men from the laundry block whispered something as they passed. One smirked. Ryla's shoulders tightened, but she didn't lower her head. Seth noticed the stairs too. Without breaking stride, he shifted slightly closer, enough that his presence blocked her from the worst of the passing glances. "You don't need to walk so close," she murmured. "Maybe I want to," he said. Her breath caught for a moment, then steadied. They reached the sanitation dispatch station. Metal shelves lined with gloves, cleaning bottles, filter masks, and rolled cloths filled the room. A supervisor stood behind the counter, scanning workers in and assigning tasks. When he looked up and saw Seth, his posture straightened. "Inspector, didn't expect someone from your tier. I'm here to check the pump corridor later," Seth said. "Wanted to make sure one of your workers didn't get overloaded on her first rotation." The supervisor blinked, caught between respect and confusion. "Well, she's on chute maintenance, section 4. Shouldn't be too rough." "It better not be," Seth said. The supervisor nodded stiffly. Ryla accepted her gloves and cloths, keeping her expression neutral. When she turned back toward Seth, she gave a controlled exhale. "You didn't have to say anything." "I know. It draws attention." "Good." Her eyes flicked to his, surprised. "Why?" "Attention keeps people accountable." She looked at him for a long second, then handed Tavi her small lunch pack. "You'll stay at the waiting bench?" Tavi nodded. "I'll stay." Seth spoke before Ryla could walk away. "I'll check the pump corridor while you're working. I want to see what air quality you're dealing with. I don't want you wasting your time on me." "It's not wasted." His voice was too steady for her to argue with. She nodded once, then headed into her rotation block. Tavi walked with Seth toward a quiet corner beside the supply station. She sat on the bench there, legs dangling. Seth took the seat beside her. For a few minutes, she ate quietly, small bites of grain cake and protein strip. After she finished half, she rested her hands on her lap and stared at the floor. "What's wrong?" Seth asked. She took a moment before answering. "Mama works too much." "I know. She doesn't say it, but she gets tired. Her hands hurt. Sometimes she wakes up at night and sits on the bed and doesn't move." Seth felt a tight pull in his chest. "Does she say why?" "No," Tavi whispered. She just stays quiet, like she's counting something on the inside. The description hit harder than anything the child had said before. Seth looked down the hallway toward where Ryla had disappeared. She shouldn't have to do all of this alone. Tavi glanced up at him. She's scared of letting anyone help. I know, Seth said, but I'm not going anywhere. She leaned lightly against his side. He didn't move away. After a minute, her breathing slowed in a way that meant she trusted the silence. He let her rest like that until a worker passed by and gave him a questioning look. Seth stared back until the man turned away. Half an hour later, Ryla reappeared carrying a damp cloth and a long-handled tool. Her gloves were wet from scrubbing. Her hair stuck to her forehead. She looked worn but focused. "What are you doing back already?" she asked when she saw Seth standing. "Checking the pumps," he said. "And checking you." She tried to hide the way her posture reacted. Tension first, then a small, almost invisible softening. "You shouldn't stand around while I'm working." "Then tell me what needs fixing," he said. "Point at anything in this corridor that's broken, leaking, or too heavy for one person to carry." She tilted her head, studying him with quiet disbelief. "You mean that?" "Yes." Ryla hesitated, then gestured toward a bin of metal filters stacked too high for most workers. "Those fall over. They're supposed to be bolted." Seth walked over, tested the bin's stability, and confirmed she was right. He knelt and hammered the bottom braces into place with the heel of his hand and a clamp from his toolkit. Ryla watched him silently, a complicated mix of caution and something warmer in her eyes. "You fix everything you see," she said. "No," Seth replied, tightening the last bolt. "Just everything that shouldn't stay broken." She didn't smile, but the tension around her mouth eased. When her break ended again, she handed Tavi her pack. "Stay here. I'll be done soon." Tavi nodded, but her voice wavered. "Mama, don't slip on the wet floor." Ryla touched her cheek. "I won't." She walked back into the hall. Seth watched her go, the straight line of her back, the tired strength in her stride. When she disappeared around the corner, Tavi tugged softly on Seth's sleeve. "Can we live near you in Mira one day?" she asked. The question landed heavy and unfiltered, the way only a child could say it. Seth's answer came without hesitation. "If that becomes possible," he said, "I won't say no." Tavi nodded, as if reassured, and leaned her head lightly against his arm again. Seth glanced down the corridor where Ryla worked, the noise of machinery echoing faintly. He had walked down here, thinking he was helping with small things, lights, vents, hinges. But the truth was clearer now. He wasn't fixing a hallway. He was stepping into a life, and he didn't want to step back out. Seth waited on the bench with Tavi until the shift bell rang across the sanitation hall. The sound was sharp, echoing along the metal corridor. Workers stepped out of the doors in small groups, shaking out their arms, wiping sweat from their necks, or stretching their backs after hours bent over drains and panels. Ryla walked out last. Her gloves hung from one hand, damp and worn. Her white hair stuck to her temples, skin flushed from the heat inside the chute corridor. She saw Seth and Tavi immediately. Something in her posture changed. Relief, disbelief, and a quiet worry all tangled together. Tavi rushed forward first, wrapping her arms around Ryla's waist. "You didn't slip," she said, voice tight with leftover fear. "I told you I wouldn't," Ryla said, running her hand through her daughter's curls. She was about to straighten up when her knees buckled slightly. Not enough to fall, just a thin wobble. Seth stepped forward and caught her elbow, steadying her before she could pull away. "I'm fine," she said quickly. Too quickly. "You worked in a wet corridor for 6 hours," Seth said. "You're exhausted. That's normal here." "It shouldn't be." Ryla tried to pull her arm back, but her muscles trembled under her skin. She stopped resisting. "Let me sit for a moment." Seth guided her to the bench without a word. She sat, leaning her back against the cool wall. Tavi tugged her jacket tighter around herself and climbed onto the bench beside her mother. Seth crouched in front of them. "How bad is it?" Ryla didn't pretend. "Not this time. My lower back feels like someone hammered it. My hands are raw from the chemicals. And I feel lightheaded." "You skipped lunch," Seth said. She didn't deny it. He opened the bag he brought and pulled out a sealed meal container with warm protein slices mixed with grain and small strips of roasted root. He placed it in her hands. Eat. Ryla held it, but didn't open it. Her fingers tightened on the edges. The warmth spread slowly across her palms. I don't want you giving everything you have to us, she said softly. People already talk. Seth sat beside her. Let them. You don't understand how fast a rumor spreads down here. I understand enough, Seth said. I've seen the looks. I've heard the whispers. Ryla kept her eyes on the container. They think I'm trading favors. They think you're here because of what I used to do before coming to this city. Look at me, Seth said. She did. I'm not here because of your past, he said. I'm here because of who you are now, and because your daughter needs consistency, and because you deserve stability. Her throat tightened. She looked away for a second, then back. You make it sound simple. It is simple. No, she said, shaking her head. Nothing has ever been simple for us. That's why I'm not walking away. The words landed heavier than he intended, but he didn't retract them. Ryla opened the container and took a slow bite. Her shoulders lowered as the warmth hit her stomach. Tavi watched her closely, as if monitoring every sign of her mother's recovery. A few sanitation workers passed by, eyeing them. One of them, an older man with tired eyes, paused. You're the inspector from the upper deck, he said to Seth. Yeah. The man nodded. She worked hard today, harder than most of us. I know, Seth said. The man looked at Ryla, then at Tavi. Don't let this place eat you alive. He walked off, pushing his cart with slow determination. Ryla watched him leave. Not everyone is cruel here, but they all keep distance. I don't want distance, Seth said. Tavi leaned into her mother's arm. He doesn't lie, Mama. Ryla exhaled, long and unsteady. She ate a bit more before setting the container on her lap. We can't keep living like this, she said quietly. You see that, right? I do, Seth said. Tavi looked between them with wide eyes. Are we going to move? She asked. Ryla touched her daughter's cheek. Nothing is certain yet. Seth stood, offering Ryla his hand. Walk with me, both of you. She hesitated, then took his hand and rose slowly. The contact was brief, but neither of them pulled away as quickly as before. They walked down the corridor, past the worn metal doors and flickering signage. The air smelled faintly of old detergent and recycled water. Tavi held both their hands now, her steps small but steady. As they reached a quieter stretch of hallway, Ryla slowed. I didn't tell you something, she said, voice nearly a whisper. Seth turned to face her. Then tell me now. When we first arrived at the Spire, they denied Tavi's registration. They said our documents from the Coast Colony weren't valid in this system. I tried again last year. They refused. No school, no clinic access, nothing. Seth's jaw tightened. Because they consider you transient. They say we don't match the residency structure. That's bureaucracy, Seth said. Not truth. Ryla's expression softened slightly. You say things like that so easily. Because they're true. She studied him, searching for a weakness, a catch, something that would explain his steadiness. She didn't find anything. That's why I don't let Tavi walk far from me, she said. She grows up unregistered. One wrong corridor, one wrong assumption, and she disappears in the cracks. Seth felt something inside him settle into place, a decision forming with solid weight. Then she won't be unregistered much longer, he said. Ryla blinked. What do you mean? There's a way to place a child under temporary household linkage, Seth said. It's not full citizenship, but it gives school access, clinic access, safety logs. You could do that, she whispered. Yes, for us. For both of you. Ryla took half a step back, overwhelmed. Tavi looked between them, not fully understanding but sensing the tension. Ryla lifted her chin. Why would you involve yourself that deeply? Because she needs it, Seth said. Because you deserve better. And because if we're going to keep walking together every morning and every night, then we need a stable path. Ryla's breath trembled. Are you asking us to live with you? If that's what keeps her safe, Seth said. If that's what keeps you from collapsing after every shift, then yes, I'm asking. Tavi's voice cut in, small and tight. I want that. Both adults looked down at her. Tavi's eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. I don't want Mama to hurt anymore. Ryla pulled her daughter close, arms wrapping around her. Seth stepped closer, not touching them, but near enough that his presence anchored the moment. Ryla looked up at him with red eyes, breath shaky but steadying. "If we do this," she said, "I need to know you won't vanish the first time things get complicated. I'm not going anywhere." Her shoulders loosened. Her expression shifted. Fear still present, but no longer alone. Something like trust flickered beneath it. "Then we'll try," she said. Seth nodded once. Solid. Final. "We start tomorrow," he said. Together. And for the first time since he'd met her at that restaurant, Ryla didn't flinch when people walked past and saw them standing together. She didn't step away. She stayed right where she was. They met at sunrise the next morning, just outside Ryla's dorm. The corridor was quiet, washed in pale blue from the old overhead bulbs. Most residents were still asleep, leaving only the soft hum of ventilation and the distant clatter of someone preparing for an early shift. Seth stood with a small carry bag in one hand, documents, a backup battery, a spare jacket for Tavi. Ryla opened the door slowly. Tavi pressed against her side. Ryla's hair was tied in a loose knot, a few white strands falling across her cheek. She wore a clean tunic and simple trousers, freshly washed. Tavi had Myra's old sky blue shirt on under her jacket, sleeves a little long. Both looked more awake than the hour suggested. Maybe it was nerves. Maybe hope. "You sure about this?" Ryla asked, her voice low but steady. "Yes," Seth said. "We go together." Tavi stepped forward first, gripping Seth's hand without hesitation. That small gesture, simple, instinctive, pulled Ryla out of the doorway. She closed the door behind her, locking it out of habit, though today it felt like closing a chapter. They walked toward the lift. Seth kept a slow pace so Tavi's short steps could keep up. Ryla stayed on his left side, close enough that their arms brushed lightly whenever the walkway dipped. She didn't apologize for it. He didn't shift away. The lift ride to the registration office was silent at first. Then Tavi spoke. "If we do this," she said quietly, "will I be allowed to go to school?" Seth nodded. "Yes, you'll have a place." Tavi pressed her lips together, trying to hide how much it meant. Ryla brushed her daughter's hair back gently. "She's never had a real class," she said. "Only scraps from other children. Stories. Words." "That ends now," Seth said. When the lift doors opened, the difference in atmosphere was immediate. Bright lights, clean smell, families moving in orderly lines, clerks behind glass windows tapping at terminals. This was a world Ryla had avoided for years. Not because she wasn't allowed, but because walking into spaces where everyone already assumed you had nothing was its own kind of wound. She took a slow breath, and Seth saw it. He leaned closer without making a show of it. "I'm right here." She nodded once. They approached the kiosk. A clerk in a dark gray uniform glanced at Seth's inspection band first, respect by default, then looked at Ryla and Tavi with a more cautious, practiced indifference. "Purpose of visit?" he asked. "Household linkage," Seth said. The clerk blinked. "Temporary." "Initial," Seth replied. Ryla swallowed hard. "An enrollment for her." The clerk typed quickly. "Unregistered minor." "Parent listed?" Ryla answered, voice steady. "Me, Ryla." No secondary guardian stated. Seth placed his ID band on the scanner. "Add me as guardian representative." The clerk looked between them, sizing the situation silently before continuing. "Understood. Initiating linkage draft." A panel slid open at the side of the kiosk, revealing a polished imprint plate, large enough for 4 hands. Ryla stared at it, breathing slower now. She had seen these plates before only from a distance. Families pressing palms together, couples forming new units, children joining households. She had never imagined her name would touch one. The clerk pressed a button. "Place your hands in sequence. Adult guardian first." Seth pressed his palm down. The scanner glowed. "Next." Ryla stepped forward. Her hand trembled once. Seth shifted closer, close enough that she could feel his body heat. She set her palm on the plate. The scanner accepted her imprint with a soft click. "Next." Tavi reached out and placed both hands down, small fingers splayed wide. The scanner accepted her too. The plate retracted. The clerk watched a moment as the system processed. "Household link is confirmed." The child will be recognized under your unit for educational and clinic access. He paused. Do you want a residency address set now? Ryla looked at Seth. He didn't rush. Only if you're ready. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded. Set his address for now. Seth didn't react outwardly, but something settled inside him. The first real foundation between all of them. The clerk printed 2 small identity slips and placed them on the counter. You're authorized. Next update, cycle happens in 3 weeks. Ryla took the slips carefully, as if afraid they'd tear. Thank you. The clerk nodded and gestured for the next family. Outside the kiosk, the walkway overlooked the upper tiers. The open space was brighter than level 19, air warmer, sound softer. People didn't stare here, they barely noticed them. Tavi held her new identity slip close to her chest. Can I keep this? She asked. Yes, Ryla said, brushing her daughter's cheek. You keep it safe. Seth stepped to Ryla's side. This means you don't have to work double shifts anymore. I still need to work, she said. Not like before. She looked down at her hands, scraped knuckles, raw skin from chemicals. I've been working like this since before she was born. You don't have to anymore, Seth said. I'll cover the rest until your schedule settles. Ryla looked up sharply. Seth, I know what I'm offering, he said. I know the weight of it. She studied him in silence, searching for cracks, false promises, hidden motives. She found none. Then she whispered, You're too calm about all of this. I've been thinking about it since the night at the restaurant. Her breath caught. You barely knew us. I knew enough. Tavi tugged both their hands suddenly. Can we go home together? Ryla knelt beside her. We don't live there yet, Tavi. But you said we might, Tavi said, looking up at both of them. And I want us to. Ryla froze. The emotion hit fast, too fast, eyes glistening before she could hide it. Seth rested his hand lightly on Ryla's back. She didn't move away this time. We can go see the place, Seth said. All 3 of us. Ryla nodded slowly. Yes, let's see it. They walked toward the lift, Seth at her side, Tavi holding both their hands. The city opened before them. His pod wasn't large, but it was clean, warm, lived in. A small living area with a low-table mirror always cluttered with drawings. A narrow kitchen with a hanging plant mirror insisted brought fresh air luck. 2 rooms, 1 bathroom, nothing special. But to Ryla and Tavi, stepping into it felt like stepping into another world. Tavi moved immediately to inspect the soft rug under her feet, then poked at the hanging plant, then pressed her face against the window to watch people walking on the upper balcony. This is so big, she whispered. It's small, Seth said. Ryla corrected him quietly. Not to us. She stepped into the kitchen, fingertips trailing across the counter. The scent of last night's tea lingered faintly. She opened the cabinet slowly, as if afraid it would vanish. Plates. Real plates. A full stack. Tavi called from the living area. Mama, the sofa is soft. Ryla turned, overwhelmed for a moment. Seth watched her, letting her take in the space at her own pace. No pressure, no speeches. He walked to her side. You can stay for a few days, he said. Both of you. See if it feels right. Ryla's throat tightened. I don't want to interrupt your life. You're not interrupting it. Her breath unsteadied. She looked down at the counter, then back at him. What if we stay and you regret it later? If I ever regret something, Seth said, I face it. I don't run. Ryla stepped closer, slow and hesitant. You make things sound so stable. I am stable. She gave a soft, shaky laugh. I don't know how to live near someone stable. You'll learn. We all will. She looked at him in a long, heavy silence. Then, very quietly, we'll stay. Seth nodded once, solid and sure. Good. Tavi climbed onto the sofa and curled into the corner with a blanket mirror kept there. She looked up with shining eyes. Can we sleep here tonight? Ryla brushed her daughter's hair gently. Yes. The words came easier than she expected. The rest of the day passed in small tasks that didn't need discussion. Seth installed an extra hanger for Ryla's clothes. Tavi and Mira, when she came home from school, played quietly on the floor. Ryla cooked Varan root stew using what she found in Seth's cabinet, moving through his kitchen with careful confidence. That evening, After Mira fell asleep and Tavi curled up beside her, Seth found Ryla standing at the balcony window. The city lights reflected on her skin, faint green glow mixing with the white strands of her hair. He stepped beside her. "You okay?" "Yes," she whispered. "I didn't think safety could feel this strange." He rested his hand lightly on the small of her back. Not pushing, not claiming. Just there. She didn't move away. After a moment, she leaned slightly into him, her shoulder brushing his chest. Her breath slowed, steady and calm. "Thank you," she said, "for choosing us." Seth slid his arm around her gently. "I didn't choose you out of pity," he said. "I chose you because it felt right. And because I wanted this." She looked up at him, close now, close enough that her breath touched his neck. "And if one day I want more, then you'll tell me," Seth said, voice low, "and I'll meet you there." Her fingers brushed the front of his shirt, hesitant but deliberate. "I think I might already want more." Seth exhaled slowly, the warmth of her touch sending a firm pulse through him. "Then we take the next step, one at a time." She nodded. Not rushed. Never rushed. Her hand stayed on his chest. His arm stayed firmly around her waist. They stood in the quiet glow of the city, the world outside humming with distant life while the apartment behind them slept peacefully. Ryla closed her eyes, leaning fully into him now. "For the first time in years," she whispered, "I'm not afraid of tomorrow." Seth held her closer. "Tomorrow is ours. No uncertainty. No question marks. No conditions. Just the beginning of a family fully formed. A home. A future. Together."